Rob, let's start with the North Dakota State game. You fall behind 7-0. Any concern about the way your guys were playing early in that game?
No, and we actually got off to a little bit of a slow start against Omaha too. And we don't think it's anything that has to do with our team or anything like that. Obviously when you go on the road, the home team's got a little more juice, a little more pop, a little more energy, and I don't know if it's survival mode, but you got to try to just not get buried in those first 2 or 3 minutes and fight it off. And we really felt like our kids did a pretty good job of that in both situations. And
then Mike got going and the team got going. You hit 10 of your next 12 shots, and then you're right back in it. But then again, the Bison put a little bit of separation in there, 11 minutes or so, or about 11-point lead there or so, and then you got to climb back in before halftime.
The first half up at Fargo was really a game of runs. They started off the game in a really good spot, and then we tightened back up a little bit, like you said. And then we made a run back at them to tighten it up when they were up 11. And then we made kind of the last real push was right there at the beginning of the second half. But it was a game of runs, and I think we're a little bit like that. I think once we get going offensively, we can score in a hurry. And NDSU was great in the first half offensively, and then we got locked in defensively in the second half, and I think we ended up holding them to 40%. So that's pretty good.
Just 30% for them in the second half, and then you guys rally from that deficit. David Jenkins really had not a great game offensively as a freshman. I mean, he's just been so phenomenal. He's going to have one of these games occasionally, and obviously he bounced back against Omaha. But was it something they were doing to him, or was he just having an off night?
No, I think he missed a couple shots early, and David, what he's finding out, so early in his career is that teams, he's not getting the same shots he was getting the first 10 or 12 games. Mm-hmm. He can really, really score, and he's playing great, and he's going to get guarded a little differently. And so, us as coaches, we got to do a good job of putting him in good spots, and his teammates got to do a good job because we're all very aware that he can really go get it, offensively. And, we got to do a better job of trying to get him a little more involved early in the game. And he's like, every other scorer. If it's not going great early, you can start to question it a little bit. So we got to get him off to a little better start. He knows that, and he's working on it. And it doesn't concern us. I'll be honest with you. We feel pretty good about David moving forward.
The one thing the Bison did do well is they hit the offensive glass well, 12 offensive rebounds, and that's obviously not a number you're real happy with.
No, that's one thing we feel like we have numbers, for our program that, when we're rebounding the ball well, when we're making a miss and getting those defensive rebounds, and it kind of starts our tempo on offense, and we can play just a little bit faster than taking the ball out of the net all the time. Things are usually pretty good for us. And we gave up a bunch of old boards. A lot of those were late in the last 10 minutes of the game, when they had to get them, when they were a little more desperate. But that's certainly not an excuse. We still got to rebound it better. There's 3 or 4 balls that we flat out should have had. That changes things. And a couple of those led to rebounds after that miss too. So, we'll get that cleaned up, and because we feel once we really start rebounding the ball well, we're going to be all right.
You talk about the game of runs. The runs you guys went on in that second half, 16-5. A lot of it was at the free throw line, and a lot of it was inside.
Yeah, Mike got going a little bit. The way that they were guarding us up in Fargo that night kind of allowed us to play through Mike a little bit, and then Reed got going in the post, and Ian got a couple baskets there, during that run. And, Mike got to the free throw line 16 times that night, so he controlled that tempo. But, we have a bunch of guys that can knock down shots, and when we're scoring the ball in the paint, things are when we can really start spreading around, and that's good for our basketball team.
I want to talk about Reed Tellinghuis, and not just in the North Dakota State game, but then also continuing into the Omaha win on Saturday. And Reed, in his last 8 games, Rob, is shooting 63% from the floor. What's gotten into Reed? He's a great shooter, but boy, this stretch that he's on right now has been unbelievable.
Can we attribute it all to being a senior?
Maybe, I don't know, but it is coming together for him right now.
Yeah, he's had a great year, and I know you talk about those stats from the last 8 games, but he really has. He's been our glue, defensively, and he's taking great shots and making big shots. He's more than 2 to 1 assist to turnover on the year. He rebounds it. he's gotten comfortable with his back to the basket. So, quite honestly, TJ's done a really good job of finding spots on the floor where he's the most comfortable and getting in the right catches, and he's making people pay for it.
So let's talk about the Omaha game. Again, like you said, a slow start. You missed your first 5. But David Jenkins, all of a sudden, he's back offensively, and he hits 8 straight points for you and really helps you with that early run.
Yeah, and, a little bit like we talked about, Jeff, we're not overly concerned. I mean, just there's times that young kids are going to have a game where it doesn't quite go how they want. David usually responds pretty well to that. If you look at the games that he struggled, he usually come back the next night and really had a nice game. But we're not worried about David scoring. We know he can score, and talking to other coaches, it's pretty apparent that David's pretty gifted with the basketball in his hand. And like I said, we probably got to put him in a little better spot than we did up in Fargo early in the game to try to get him going. And we did that, and he made him pay early. And once David sees a couple go in, he can score it.
Really good from the 3-point line, and then Skylar Flatten poured in 4 threes for you in that game as well.
Yep, and that changed the way, you always go into a game thinking how you want to guard somebody. We all do. And Skylar, you can, at some point, when you got a guy like Mike on the floor, you'd like to give some help from somewhere, and Skylar's been able to. He's been able to take advantage of that, shooting 52% from the arc on the year. And then when he makes one and you start to go under ball screens and things like that, Skylar's certainly capable of jumping up and making 3 or 4 threes on you, and he did that down at Omaha. He's once again, Skylar's he's been around the program for a long time, and he's improved defensively, and he's making shots like crazy right now.
2 home games this week. Let's start with Oral Roberts on Thursday. New head coach Paul Mills taking over for Scott Sutton. That's going to be odd not to see Scott Sutton there, but it hasn't hurt him. They're 3-0 to start things, and they're getting things done really, really on the boards. They're a great rebounding team. Really good rebounding team, and if you take a look at the personnel that they're playing, you would assume that they start really, really big. And then, quite honestly, when Albert Owens comes off the bench, he's been a 3.5-year starter there. So they get bigger when they come in off the bench with him. So, and they've always, even with Coach Sutton, they preached rebounding all the time. And it certainly doesn't look like that's any different right now. They chase it on the glass offensively, and they're pretty good at getting it when you miss. So we've got it. We have to keep them off the glass and try to control the boards. And they're tough to defend because they distribute the ball well, and they are really balanced when it comes to their scoring. They are. They have the right guys taking the right shots. They do a nice job of putting some pressure on the paint with the big fellas, and then their guards have the ability to make shots on the kickouts and rotations. And I'm impressed with how they're playing. Defensively they're going to zone you up, and that's a little different for our league. We don't see a lot of that, and we haven't in a long time. But offensively, he's done a nice job. Those guys know what they want, and they're pretty stubborn about getting it. They're doing a nice job. And then Denver on Saturday, and the second year with Rodney Billups in charge, and obviously the tempo of the Denver program has changed under Rodney Billups. And Daniel Amigo, Joe Razga, 2 great scores. They did not have a great shooting week last week, just 31% against USD, and then 33% against Fort Wayne. They turned it over 33 times. So they're a team right now that's kind of trying to find themselves. They've lost 5 of 6. Yeah, and they'll get tested this weekend, obviously. I think they go to Fargo Thursday and into our place. And I fully anticipate them to come out because they know how to win. They won a lot of games last year. They won road games last year. And they got a lot of those guys back. I fully expect to have they're going to go on the road and play well. They'll play well at NDSU on Thursday, and they'll play well at our place on Saturday. They've got a lot of older guys that have been there, done that, and they have a lot of guys that have logged a lot of minutes, and they're older. All those things would lead you to believe that they're going to come ready to go this weekend, and we're expecting a battle. They've always been a team who hasn't beat themselves. I know the turnovers last weekend got away from them a little bit, but typically they've taken really good care of the ball and certainly not beat themselves, and they'll get that cleaned up.